We did have a number of the Jewish tradition that were present at the plays that took place this weekend, and they were not at all familiar with the Canticle of Zechariah. And as I look at that tradition, and I remember having spent some time at the synagogues or temples, is they're pretty well involved with the Torah and the Old Testament. And in their books, there is no such thing as the New Testament. They don't read any further. It's not taught in their schools. It's not there at all. And so the idea to them of a continuation or there being one Bible, because they don't view the Bible as we view it, they don't view that the New Testament exists at all, and that phase has not been written yet. A lot of traditional Jewish beliefs system are still waiting for the Messiah to appear. They have not accepted Jesus as the Messiah, and so that's what's interesting. And then, of course, there are, like in the Catholic faith, there's so many things that were borrowed. I say Catholic because I was raised Catholic, but in the Christian tradition, there's so many things borrowed from the Jewish tradition that are all parts of the services. They've continued on. And it seems to me that where the Jewish tradition left off in refusing to accept Christianity as the continuation of their story, and that the Messiah has come, and that it's time for them to embrace that fact, although it's 2,000 years later, to continue to move their traditions forward. In a similar light, many Christians don't see themselves as an outpouring or an evolution from the Jewish tradition. And I think that's in both in their own way aren't looking at the wholeness of the picture. And certainly the acceptance of Christ as the Son of God and the Messiah that brought salvation, was a world Savior, brought salvation here to the people of earth. The acceptance of those ideas and those thoughts in the absence of looking at the Jewish tradition is a grave error. That entire tradition lent itself to Jesus' coming. And for those that embraced Jesus' appearance here and continued on from there, there certainly is a large segment that accept both the Old Testament and the New Testament as the entire Bible from beginning to end, and having accepted that, move forward in that vein, but they have lost the idea or the concept of their beginning, their traditions, which stem out of Judaism. So I think what's happening now in the world in this push to get everyone to embrace the Bible in its entirety and to embrace the various traditions in their entirety as really being one and being a continuation of an original tradition that has grown, modified, adapted itself to modern times is a good idea. And I, for one, am certainly in favor of that, and I certainly applaud the effort given by the La Cañada Theater Group to make that happen, and I know that is a continued effort that will happen each holiday season, and I can't wait for Easter to see what he comes up with there. But I think it's important for all of us and for us to remember that we're not separated from, we're not different. And I know that the Jewish tradition seems to look at themselves as being the chosen group, race, whatever, but I think all of mankind is chosen. They were certainly the forerunners in a sense that God or the universal creative force chose to move forward in a certain direction and to give certain messages and ideas through and preserve certain traditions through. I think that's all happened. We need to look at it in a more modern fashion. And I know that in every segment of the world, in every religion, we have this same problem that continues. One of the things brought out was the idea of Orthodox Judaism and Reform Judaism and conservative Judaism, and we have the same thing within Christianity. We have those, we talked a little bit today and earlier about the Orthodox Christian Church being an offshoot of Catholicism. We certainly have, in Catholicism, we have very strict, what do I want to call, I guess I'll call them Orthodox ideas, and then we have Reformed ideas. And certainly in Judaism now, we have Jews for Jesus. There's different branches, there's different ideas, there's different thoughts. If we move on over to the Eastern world and the Muslim tradition, we find that there's a great split there. There are those that are very, what do I want to call it, traditional, very strict in their interpretation of things. There's those that are more modern. There's many that want to meld all thoughts or all ideas, all religions together. They're very much the same in a lot of ways. Matthew and I got to go see Avatar the other night, the movie that's out, and I know that's a movie, but it seems to me the story of the Bible is such an old story and such a well-written story that it keeps getting, I don't know, emulated, maybe that's the word that I'm looking for, is there's over and over again in various traditions we hear of a promised one that is to come to help or to save the people, to lead them out of some sort of darkness or slavery that they've been encased in. The promised one always comes, and the promised one is always seemingly different than what they thought he was going to be. He comes from a different source than where they thought he was going to come from, and he learned different traditions and different ideas than what they thought would happen, and he did different things. But in each case, he changed, modified, brought people out of a difficult situation and brought them into a new light. And so that story is repeated over and over again as how strong that story is, and it's repeated in our comic books, our movies, books that are written, various traditions throughout time. And it's time for us all to take a look at that idea and that thought and try to look at each other, especially in this time of the season, whether the tradition is going to be Hanukkah or whether it's going to be Christmas, whether it's going to be the birth of Christ, whatever the high element is. I personally enjoy all the aspects of this season. I think mankind is standing in a much better light, and they tend to take more time for each other now and to be more kindly toward one another. And I think that's really an important idea. So for us, throughout this season and throughout Christmas, I know we spend time with our families, but let's just have the idea of viewing everyone that we see, everyone that we meet out there, without looking at whether or not they're Christian, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Muslim, whatever their beliefs are, whether in whatever aspect of Christianity they embrace. Let's just view them as part of mankind, and each of us is heading in the same spot. To me, God is not going to leave anyone behind, and everyone is saved one way or another. He's just not shucking people aside because they're acting in a stranger fashion or worshiping in another way. That's why there's different traditions. So let's just embrace everybody, wish them all the same thoughts of the season we want going to our fondest and our closest family and our loved ones. You know, the thoughts of love and joy and peace and kindness and gentleness. Let's see all that happening for each person here on the planet during this particular time. So with that thought in mind, let us do our acceptance statement.
Now,
and may the light illumine our mind with wisdom. May love fill our heart with understanding. May the one life shine forth from our innermost being, so that we walk renewed in light, life, love, today, tomorrow, and forever.